love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And always, I just remind everybody, go to the website. It's livingyourinspiredlife.org and listen to all the good work that's been happening. Every show, if you've caught a piece of it and you didn't get the whole show, everything's archived on the site, livingyourinspiredlife.org. So you can just get inspired on a daily basis if you want. Don't have to wait until Sundays. So with that being said, I had the most amazing opportunity to go to a women's conference, an empowerment conference down in San Diego last week. And the first speaker blew me out of my chair. And so I'm so grateful that she was able to say yes to coming on the show and doing what she does so well. So I want to welcome the author of The P.I.L.O.T Method, Elizabeth McCormick. Elizabeth, thanks for making time today.
I'm glad to be here, Susan, for having me.
Yeah. So let me just tell everybody so they have a heads up about your background. Because your background from a woman's perspective to me is very unusual. So Elizabeth was an Army Black Hawk helicopter pilot and decorated Army officer and pilot with Army Commendation Medals, several, Army Achievement Medals, several, National Defense Service Medal, a bunch of medals, and then culminating in the Congressional Veteran Commendation for her commitment to duty and community. So that's a big resume right there, Elizabeth.
Yeah, no one knows what all those medals mean. It's fine.
Yeah, but, I can imagine, I can see it in my mind's eye that your career was long and it was very active. So I thank you for your service.
It was my honor to have served our country.
So consequently, having been a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, the book is titled The P.I.L.O.T Method, but it's P.I.L.O.T, and those letters stand for different aspects that you're now out in the world teaching and helping people learn how to utilize in order to learn how to lead yourself. That's your catchphrase, which I love. Lead yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Fly. First, lead yourself.
Lead yourself.
You got to fly. So, yeah, and so in piloting is that framework around which that we fly. And so the P is about potential, believing in yourself and your abilities, which I could spend this whole hour just on that because it's so elemental to how you show up, is believing in yourself and your abilities and your potential and then developing it. And then
Well, Elizabeth, let me because I have quotes from your book. So I'll
let you go. Go ahead.
Well, because it was so juicy to me. So I want to read everybody your definition of potential that you have in the book. And you said potential, the definition is a present but not visible excellence or ability that may or may not be developed. And then you said, notice the definition of potential does not specify who has it. Potential is always present. We all have it within us. And I like what you said about it may or may not be developed because I know I have clients that have huge potential and some of them are really not activating it.
Absolutely. We all have it. I mean, and there's brain studies and science that shows that we're not even reaching our even those that feel like they're at their potential are really not even tapping into everything that we have that capability of being and doing. And it just, to me, is amazing that, it just never ends. It's like energy creates energy. The more we do, the more we get, and the more we can do. and it just kind of becomes this like momentum of boulder rolling down the hill.
And I like that idea of energy creating energy, because we can choose for that energy to be very positive and have a positive, loving, powerful effect in our lives and in our world, or we can choose to have that energy be a negative, destructive energy.
Absolutely. Choices are really key to everything for us.
Absolutely. And choosing how we want to live. So would you mind just giving everybody the backstory of why Black Hawk helicopter pilot before we get into the whole P.I.L.O.T method?
Absolutely. So I was an unemployed military wife. I had 5 years of college, almost three college degrees, and I couldn't get a job because of where we were stationed and where I was as a wife. And I was miserable and like really miserable because I just knew I had all that potential inside me, and I wasn't using my degree. I mean, I ended up getting a job at a pizza place. It was, like I said, I like pizza, but
yeah,
college and the student loan and just, everything. The circumstances I was in, I refused to let define me. So I looked and said, what can I change? And one of the things I could change was what I did. And so I looked at my starter husband.
I love that phrase. I'm so grateful that you've coined that phrase. I love it. Starter husband. Thank you.
Yes. So I looked at him and and realized that if he was in the Army, I could do that too. I mean, he wasn't any, I'm trying to say it nice. He
Oh, let me say it for you. He wasn't any great shakes. There you go.
He wasn't in great shape. He wasn't that smart. He wasn't, and some of those things I wish I'd figured out earlier. But it is what it is. And,
yep.
And I just really kind of said, well, if he could do it, I could do it. But he was a medic, and I wanted a cooler job. And so, I mean, people are just stunned when I tell them, I'm like, look, I just wanted the coolest job there was. I didn't know what it was. I researched it. I asked around. I asked people, what would you do if you could do anything? And over and over again, they said, oh, I'd be a helicopter pilot. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I just didn't know it was hard. I didn't know that they'd only let women into aviation, Army aviation, at about 10 years or so before that. And the Army wasn't letting very many in at the time. It was like one, and let's see how it worked out. And really was kind of cautious and prudent in how they were bringing women in.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize any of the obstacles, and I really learned that we have to believe in ourselves and our potentials, even if no one else believes in it.
And I love that. I have another quote from your book about what you said about belief. Belief is the foundation to leading yourself and then others. Belief builds our confidence and allows us to handle situations that challenge us. And you also say we let reality or doubts get in the way of believing in our own potential. Or worse, we make it conditional. When I receive this promotion, I'll develop my potential. And I got to tell you, Elizabeth, I'm right there at where I know I can do this thing. If I'm focusing, I know I can do it. But darn if a belief of doubt or somebody says, that's never been done. It does trip me up, and I know that that's true for everyone, whether you're a woman or a man. That self-doubt creeps in, especially if you're listening to other people. And it's hard not to listen to other people,
Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard not to listen to other people because we make all these assumptions. Well, they've been there before. They're older than us. They know better than us. But those assumptions aren't necessarily based in fact either. They're based in, again, the doubt.
Well, that's why your story is fascinating to me, because you did make this choice to become a Black Hawk helicopter pilot, and you had to absolutely believe that you could do it. And so the not knowing what was in store for you was probably to your benefit. And then once you got in there, you had to just keep picking yourself up and believing that. For you to do and accomplish what you did, to me, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could have the tenacity, which is one of your elements in P.I.L.O.T. I don't know that I could do that. what you did. It's amazing what you did.
It was in that naive bravado that we have when we're in our 20s, right? And it's like, oh, I can do that. I can't say that I would have done the same thing today, but it's a choice to be courageous in your decision making and in what you're going to stand up for, and some things are worth fighting for and some things aren't. So if your future is not worth fighting for, how can you expect anyone else to invest and fight for your future for you?
Right. If you're not willing to fight for yourself, then exactly, who else is?
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of women out there that are going through whether it's a career shift or a divorce, a contentious divorce, where it's hard to pull yourself off the mat, and say, I believe in myself. And there's something that you were talking about doing about being your own cheerleader and looking at yourself in the mirror every day. And because that's what you had to do, right? You had to tell yourself every day.
I drew the flight instructor who didn't believe women should fly, and it was demoralizing. I mean, he screamed at me every single day. He made me not want to get out of bed in the morning, and he made me want to quit because legally he couldn't fail me just because of my gender. I had to fail. So it became every day. It became like a battle between I want to be here and showing up in a way that wasn't good because I wasn't learning what I needed to learn to pass. So, when you come into those moments in your life where it's like you in the mirror, it's like a battle, and it's looking at yourself in the mirror and knowing that if you are not your own best cheerleader, no one else is going to step up into that role. Nobody else does. I mean, I'd like to say, your mom runs behind you every day, all day long, but come on,
No.
The fact of the matter is, it's up to us.
It is up to us.
Male, women, it doesn't matter. I teach those techniques to men too, and they're like, yeah, we have that. Now they're a little bit better at compartmentalizing, in the way our brains are wired, and they can compartmentalize it and put it away a little bit more, but it helps them too. And in that, I use a lot of positive affirmations, and what I teach and show is pick 5 words, positive words, and you say them to yourself in the mirror every single morning, inside as you're brushing your teeth, outside as you're talking out loud. My friend of mine teaches tiny habits. It's attaching a new habit to an existing habit. So like brushing your teeth. So doing things when you're already doing something else. And so what are your 5 positive words? And saying them to yourself and creating an invisible suit of armor between you and the other stuff that happens or could happen. Because if you're not setting out that day for success, nobody else is doing that for you. And we're not coming equipped for what could happen.
I like that idea of starting your day with that. Because I think a lot of people, hit the floor running and coffee and freeway driving, and they get to work, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, what am I supposed to be doing today? How am I supposed to be positive? Because my days started way a long time ago.
Yeah, and it could be while you're driving. I mean, whatever makes sense for you. For me, it was brushing my teeth, and hopefully everybody does that. But so 5 positive words. So like, how does it look for me? Is while I'm brushing my teeth, I look at myself in the mirror, and in my head, over and over and over again, I say, I am smart. I am confident. I am genuine. I am powerful. I am a rock star. That's what I need from me to perform on stage when I'm speaking in front of like the San Diego Women's Week or 550 women there. When I'm performing, I need that because nobody else is standing behind me doing that. It's up to me. And if I don't show up confident, if I don't show up as my best self, how can I possibly do my job or help other people?
So can we talk briefly, Elizabeth, about negative thoughts versus positive beliefs? Because you speak a little bit to that in your book.
I do. Mm-hmm.
And you say that negative thoughts do serve a purpose, and it's not necessarily to distract you from your goal. Those negative thoughts can be a warning sign to potential roadblocks or detours ahead. And that caught my attention because when those negative thoughts start for me, it's so easy to spiral downward. And then I'm just in the pit of despair, going, well, I don't know. Should I even get out of bed? And then I think that those negative thoughts are beliefs, right?
They can be, but here's the trick with all that. It's a choice. Mm-hmm. It's a choice to believe that negative thought, or it's a choice to say, not serving me. I don't need it. I choose not to use that. I'm going to flip it to the positive and then use those affirmations to help anchor the positives in its place. So, the negative thinking, how sometimes you want to do something and either a person or a thought is a devil's advocate, right? We call it, where it goes the opposite direction. It says, wow, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? What if we took those negative thoughts and looked at them very constructively without emotion and said, how is that serving me? And it requires a level of consciousness, right? And awareness of yourself to say, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole and spiral it down. I want to look at it and say, why am I feeling this way? What happened? What can I do better? Maybe I need a break. I'm burnt out. I need, what is it telling me? Not the belief itself, but why is the belief coming up now? What is the timing saying? What is what is it telling me? Does it telling me I need to equip myself in a different way? Is it telling me I need to take a break? Is it telling me, because it could be, it's useful information, but the point is it's information. Right. And it's information that then, like you said earlier, we have a choice about. Then we can choose to see it differently. Absolutely. We have a choice of how deep we allow it to spiral, right? We have a choice to look at it and say, you know what? This is telling me I need a break. I'm going to do something different today. I'm going to shake up my routine. I'm going to, whatever it is, there's knowledge in there. And if it doesn't serve you, so let me tell you one. So, okay, for women, a big one is like, oh my gosh, it's getting warmer out. I need to go bathing suit shopping, right? or jean shopping or whatever it is, right? Now, the negatives, but that just makes me feel fat. It makes me feel, blah, blah, blah. I'm bloated, blah, whatever it is. That doesn't serve, right? Right. That just makes it more negative. It draws more attention. We feel more self-conscious. It erodes our self-confidence. See that spiral? Yep. We start spiraling into a lower self-esteem. It doesn't serve us. So what serves us is looking at it and say, okay, what do I need to do to feel better? And what am I willing to do to be better, to make the change? Am I willing to go work out? I really don't have time. I don't want to go to the gym, whatever. Okay, great. Those are choices. So we can feel empowered by making the choices. You know what? I would rather look the way I look than to take the time to look differently. That's a choice. We're empowered by our choices that we make because it creates our consciousness out from that, right? Right. I have another quote from your book, The P.I.L.O.T Method. And this is kind of under the implementation section. You said the choices you create in the action you take make you. The choices you create in the action you take make you. The way you react in a situation that are put upon you, situations that are not of your control, define you. But I like that the choices that you create in the action you take. I love that. Because that's exactly what you're talking about. I can choose to go to the gym or I can choose not to. And then that is what makes me. That's right. It doesn't define me necessarily, but it is definitely what makes my situation. Well, it makes your situation. And here's the other piece of that we don't really think about is that's what others do judge us on is what we do, not what we say. Right. so it creates our whole perception around what we do and the choices that we and choices that we make and the actions that we take are not just for ourselves but for others.
Well, it's interesting because I remember at the conference, and I have a friend who was recently dealing with a work situation where they kind of felt they weren't being seen and heard. But at the conference, too, because you said your actions will, basically what you said to me just now is the actions will make you, the actions will define you. Not define you, but actions speak louder than words. But also at the conference, there were many executives saying, and you have to talk up. You have to, in essence, say, "Hey, I am worthy of this next step in my career. I am capable. I am able to do it." And you have to tell the people around you, or your boss. You have to apply for it.
Oh, well, again, that's action, right?
Right.
We can't just say, "Oh, my goal is to be the CEO someday or be promoted to vice president," and then not take action, not apply for promotions, not show up, dressing up. I'm a big proponent of you dress for the job you want, not unless it's like a Wonder Woman suit, maybe. But, but you dress up, you do the thing. When I wanted to get promoted, I started dressing like the other people at the level higher than me, not what I needed to wear for my job now. Because I worked a corporate job for a while. So, I've been there. And so, but it's again, how you show up. Do they see that you're effective? Do they see that you're efficient? Do they see that you get things done or not? Right? Those perceptions affect what other people how they assess us, right? Because we're being assessed, especially if you do work in a corporate environment and report to someone else. Even if you're a business owner, and if you have customers or clients, or like for me as a speaker, my meeting planners, my radio show host, right? I mean, everyone is assessing you for something. Are you a fit? Are you not a fit? Are you fit what you say you do? Are you showing up that way? Or are you not? And it's, it's kind of up to you. Are you going to rise to those occasions or not?
So let's circle back to the whole P.I.L.O.T method, which is the title of your book. And the first P stands for potential. So the I stands for implementation, which is what we're just tapping on right now. So could you expand on that a little bit more, Elizabeth? Implementation.
So for me, implementation, so everything is built on belief, right? The potential of what you have, of what you can be, and your belief in yourself and your abilities. But here's the thing we were just talking about is if you don't do something with it, if you don't develop your potential, if you don't invest in your future, if you don't take that belief and do something with it, it's kind of a waste, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really is important that we do the things we say we do, because when we don't, then we're in a lack of integrity, right, with the people around us. And so implementation is really, it becomes just as important as building your belief and your confidence in your abilities.
So taking action on, even if you're only recognizing a small portion of your potential at that moment, to take action on something that activates or expands that potential?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do something more. Stretch. Do a little bit more than you did the day before.
And in that chapter on implementation, you talked about that you learned how to survive and thrive in overwhelm. So speak a bit about that.
So when I was in candidate school, they purposely put us in overwhelm, because the whole purpose of it was to weed out the weak. Right? We lost, I think we lost 7 people in that course. It was pretty intense. They put us where they purposely gave us more tasks to do in one day than you could possibly do, to see if you were going to sink, swim, panic. What was your mechanism for dealing with that? And so what we got really good at in that military training was breaking it down into what's next. And what happens is we get into overwhelm and everything starts swirling. We start thinking about all the different things we have to do, and we start swirling, and we spend all this energy in that. What we keep saying swirl, don't we, Susan?
Yep.
We keep saying all this energy in between this to this, and thinking about what all the things we have to do instead of just going, what's next, and getting it done. What's next, and getting it done, and getting very good. I saw a quote recently on Twitter about how the difference between the highly successful people and those that aren't able to achieve as much is the ability to make quick decisions and then the speed of implementation. So, and I really believe in that, is you have to quickly assess. There's so many things that need to get done. What is next? What is the highest value, the most important that I can accomplish quickly, and then go to the next thing?
Well, so Elizabeth, that makes sense hearing you say it. But when I'm in actual overwhelm, I tend to just bog down, or just go unconscious. I don't even know that I'm doing anything to clear the stuff that's on my desk.
We shut down.
Shut down.
I'm sure, we shut down. So here's the thing to do, Susan. And if you're listening, if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. But just take a stop. Just stop for a second when you're in overwhelm and take a really deep breath in. And then exhale out and say, okay, what do I need to do next? And just ask yourself that out loud. What do I need to do next? There's piles, yep, okay, but what's next? What is the most important thing? And sometimes we might not think it's the most important thing, but there's something about cleansing that breath and the exhale that it gets really clear. And that one thing that sometimes pops might not be what we would have put on a to-do list as next. It's coming up for a reason. Trust that instinct. Trust the inner voice, the intuition that comes in that exhale. That there's something beautiful about taking that deep breath and getting that exhale of clearing. And you trust that and go, okay, this is next. I'm going to take care of this. And then when that's done, another breath and another next.
I like that. The taking the pause and breathing in between a task. Because sometimes I'll get so revved, and I know this is true for lots of people, which is why I'm speaking to this. But then, if I'm in shutdown, if I get activated and I'm revved, I'm then like spinning my wheels like a cartoon character, trying to get ahead, but I'm kind of in place. And so I like the idea of what you're suggesting of taking a pause and taking a breath and then doing whatever the next thing is. And following your intuition.
Yeah, that we don't. I think we get so busy being busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Oh my God, I'm so busy. Yeah, we're all busy. Okay. So let's level that playing field. We're all busy. So, we get so busy being busy that we forget to be.
Mm-hmm.
We forget to really listen to that intuition because we have the TV on and the radio on. Sometimes you got to turn it off because it just adds to that noise.
Oh, yeah.
And we got to be able to turn it off and discern within ourselves what our real priorities are and what's important, and doing that through the breath and getting some clarity in that moment. And it's just that moment, but that intuition will speak to you. And the more you honor that intuition and the more you allow it through, the more it'll come.
And that's your compass now. That's your guide.
That's a big compass for me now. It's helped me. I would say I have two big compasses. So one is, and it comes into the L is leadership, communicate, aviate, navigate. My big navigate is the big, 10, 15, 20-year goal. And my big goal is to be the female Zig Ziglar, the female Tony Robbins, the female John Maxwell, because we don't have one. We don't have one. And so that is my overarching goal, is to be that motivational speaker on a global level with an impact and influence. And everything I do, that is my main compass. Everything I do leads me closer to that, and if it's not taking me closer, it's taking me further away. And I shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, that's a good indicator.
So when you get really, really clear on that really long, and it's a long-term goal. We're not talking 5 years. We're not talking next year. We're talking, 15, 20 years down the road maybe, right?
Right.
When you look at it in that way, you kind of see the navigation shifts, right? And things are going to get you closer, they're going to get you further away. But here's the thing: there's no neutrality. If you're like in the helicopter, if you're hovering, if you're staying in one place, you actually burn more fuel because
Wow.
you don't have any momentum or inertia and aerodynamic tendencies and working with you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about leadership now. The L and the pilot, and I loved that you have 3 pillars of leadership, and you said you have to have all 3. You have to be doing all 3 in order for this to stand. And the first, it's communicate, aviate, and navigate.
Yep, they spell can, so it's easy to remember.
Oh, there you go.
We can leadership. We can be better leaders. We can. One of the free video trainings I offer through my website is how the using the word you can, like I can do something versus I can't, creates a different physiological reaction in your mind. So it's all about can and empowering and saying we can do that and believing that our abilities in that can, but it applies to leadership as well. But the communicate, aviate, navigate are aviation terms. They work together. There's a whole lot of aviation stuff behind that and why those are important principles. But it really comes down to those 3 working together.
And I love that the aviate is about taking action, because as a civilian, Elizabeth, I just think aviate is about flying. I have no idea what that's about. And you said, no, it's about taking action. And I was like, okay, I can do that.
That's right. You can fly. You can do that. When I do my speeches and I talk about aviate, and there's someone in the back of the room with their arms crossed going, she's not going to make me aviate. But it really is, it comes right back to that implementation section and how we have to do the things we say we're going to do. So if you communicate something and you don't do it, you have an integrity problem. And if you do aviating, if you take action on something and you're not communicating, you now have a different set of problems, right? You have a trust issue. People don't know what you're really doing because you're not communicating clearly. So the 2 work together, and then when you layer that with navigate and being clear on what your outcome is, what you want to accomplish, what your desired outcome, what your longer term goals are, and the navigate becomes the filter for what communication you do and what actions you take.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Everything is a driver, right?
So let's circle back to the communication piece for leadership, because I've worked in lots of hierarchical organizations, and I've often been at the leadership top, and what I've noticed is oftentimes people that are planning the vision for the organization or whatever it is, they think they've got it all figured out, and then they want the subordinates to implement it, but the communication from the top down doesn't always happen. So how do you make sure that happens? Because oftentimes people are in organizations are doing pieces of a puzzle that fits a vision that the people in the big office upstairs have, but they haven't told everybody yet. So nobody knows why they're doing what they're doing.
It's really a delicate balance, isn't it? Because we want to, in fact, one of my upcoming books actually researching and working on right now is about leading with transparency, being more open as to the reasons why, and so that people feel more empowered, right, with that, and creating that balance between what's too much information, right?
Right.
And what's proprietary and things like that. But so with that, if you're working somewhere and it's top-down leadership, right? They're telling you this, and this is the way it is. The communication has to work 2 ways. You working there need to raise your hand and say, you know what? I really want to understand. How can we be better? How can we, do this? Can you share with me the reasons why? I'm not afraid. Be courageous to stand up and say, I need more information.
So that I can do my job better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You say that and say, you know what, I need to, can I get a little bit more clarity so I understand how this fits in the bigger picture so that I can do my job better. So if you communicate and ask for that, and then, then I can do my activate, right? I can do my job better with the aviating.
Right.
And then we'll make sure that we clearly get to the job. So and the navigating the end job and the result. I think the other thing that happens too, and one of the things that I talk about, I will tell you, at the San Diego Women's Week, it was a great conference, but boy, I didn't have much time. They only gave me 25 minutes, so I had a lot more.
Yes,
more
I could tell.
I know. So with that, if you take, so for those listening that work in a job and work for someone else, right? So we have our job description. We have the goals of the organization. The goals of the job description should support the goals of the organization, right?
Right.
Mission, the vision, the outcome, whatever the overarching, whatever the organization uses for that. So, first of all, are those in alignment? Is there something more you should be doing as part of your job and duties that needs to be addressed? So don't be afraid of when you have a job description of saying, this is also part of my job and it's not in here. And being able to offer feedback back. And then the other piece of it, because we all have, when we work for someone else, you have that assigned, which is one of my favorites, right? So other duties as assigned, if you take that other duties as assigned and create a spreadsheet, create your internal spreadsheet just for you. And every time, so this requires you to really know and understand your job description as well as the company's overarching mission. And every time you're asked to do an other duty as assigned that's not in your job description, you need to be writing it down and keeping it in the spreadsheet.
Why?
And when you keep that in the spreadsheet, and then if you do it multiple times, you just add new dates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And say, look, I did this task 15 times this year. And you take it to your review and say, I'd like this added to my job description. Right? And oh, by the way, here's all the other duties assigned that I did in addition to what's my job description. Because what happens is we do an annual review or a biennial review every other year, whatever it is. So in for that review period, all we can remember is what we did last month or the last 2 months.
Right. Yeah, and then if you look back, then you can see how productive you were and maybe even more productive or more out of the box of what your job was.
Absolutely. So it's up to you to keep track of that.
Mm-hmm.
Your boss doesn't keep track of that. And here's the other thing that happens to a lot of times when you're working for someone else is you get tasking from people who aren't your boss.
Oh, yeah.
You get tasking from other departments or in a committee or different things, so you get other tasking. And so I talk about this back in that I section is about prioritizing and in your planning. And so if you are getting mixed messages on this is urgent, and urgent's all about time sensitivity. If you take all those urgencies and they all are important, then you, as someone who works for someone else, should be taking that to your direct line supervisor and saying, look, I'm getting these taskings from you as urgent, and I've got this one from this committee that's urgent, and I've got this one from your boss that's urgent that went direct to me. Which one should I do first? There's not a boss in this world that's going to get mad at you for doing that. They're going to look at this and say, holy cow, I didn't know you had all these taskings.
Right.
And here's the thing that happens, and I talk to the women that are listening here, right? Here's the thing that happens is as women, we just say yes to everything and take them all. And here's what our male counterparts do. They go, dude, I'm busy. I got this task from here and this from over here and this from over here. You need to give that to somebody else. They push back.
And women generally don't. We take it.
In general, women just say, okay, when do you need it by? And then we get into overwhelm. So if you get into those overwhelm situations, you need to push back. Because sometimes our own direct line supervisors have no idea that we've been tasked these other items from other departments and have so many urgencies due at one time. And they have the resources to either support you in your decision making or help you make that decision. as well as they can take those priorities and give you more resources. Have someone else come over and help you, or push back to that department head and get you more time.
Mm-hmm. But
you
it is
can't
about
do that
communicating.
alone.
You have got to communicate it.
You have got to communicate. You cannot do that alone. And men are better at it than women in a corporate environment. They push back. They say, you know what? I can't do all this. You're going to have to wait. And we just go, okay. It's part of that nurturing, people-pleasing nature that, and again, it's a little bit of a generalization, but I've seen it over and over and over again, where we're not empowered by and confident in our decision-making and in those moments. So see, it comes right back to that potential and belief and potential of everything, of knowing how we show up and what we bring and contribute to that organization. And saying, sir, I'm loaded right now. If I can take this on, but I can't get to it till next week. We need to be more confident in our pushback and more clear in our communication with that.
That makes a lot of sense. And something else that caught my attention, Elizabeth, in I think it was the implementation chapter again, was you said something about stress is a tool. And I think stress for me is just stress. I had it, so how do you utilize and master stress and use it as a tool? And because that just sounded like, okay, it could be used positively.
It can be channeled. It can be channeled. So think about it. Okay, think about it back to that breath and that overwhelm, right? What stress can do, why our bodies are developed with the fight or flight and everything is so that we can increase your cortisol, which increases, blood and da-da-da-da. And it makes you more aware. It can heighten your awareness during certain situations. The problem is when we go into chronic stress, where it just never goes away. So then that ends up has a lot of negative health impact for us, and it doesn't serve us. Again, if it doesn't serve us in our bodies and our minds and who we are, and which then affects our job and everything else, we need to look at that and say, well, how do I need to manage that differently? So it's taking that deep breath. Okay, is this going to matter in 5 years?
That's a good question.
Is this going to matter in 10 years? Is this going to matter in 1 year? I mean, is this really that important, or is it just a blip? Is it just something I need to get through right now? Some things are important and some things aren't. And what happens is we stress and overinflate items that we just got to get through.
Oh, you know what? Thank you for saying that. I just heard that. That, like you said, overinflating items. And there are some things we just have to get through. And we can stress about it and angst about it and say, I don't want it. But there are just some things that have to be gotten through, period.
Yeah, it's just, I had to get through flight school, even with an instructor that wanted to fail me and being the only girl in the class. I had to get through it. I wasn't going to get through it any faster by being incredibly stressed or, becoming a basket case. That wasn't going to happen. So I just have to get through it.
And that goes back to what you were saying earlier about focusing on one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. And raising your awareness that right now, this is all that I'm doing. This is my focus. This is what I'm doing. And then the navigate part, because this is where I want to be. This is what I want to get to.
And when you get really clear on that, and I think that's the biggest thing I see happening a lot, is that people tend to be on autopilot.
Let's talk about that.
They're just responding and reacting to what's happening to them instead of having that clear navigation of what they want to accomplish that is driving them.
So what are, in the book you describe some ways to discern if you are on autopilot? Because if you're on autopilot, you're just unconscious, right?
Oh, I wouldn't say unconscious, because then you're not.
All right. I take it back.
Not unconscious. I would say you're reactive. Mm-hmm. So are you at work? reading emails and responding to emails, or are you and just dealing with the emergencies, which we all have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But are you not doing anything to look at the root cause and be more conscious of what's causing these emergencies and how can we fix that to begin with? So are you being part of a solution, or are you just reacting to the problem?
Okay, and that's a way to discern if I'm on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you said about being on autopilot is when you feel trapped. And I think a lot of people, that caught my attention too, because I don't know that a lot of people they think they're doing something. But if I'm feeling trapped in the job that I'm in, let's say, or the relationship that I'm in, if I'm feeling trapped, then it makes sense. Once I read that in your book, then that's a good indicator that maybe I'm just automatically going along with everything, that I'm on autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Your feelings are talking to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you if you're, we've talked actually a lot about feelings in our time together so far, Susan, and, but looking at why am I feeling this way? What is causing this? And is it just because it's easier to stay in this relationship or stay in this job than to make the change, even though I know I want the change? Right? That can be a whole cycle of that trapped feeling or autopilot. So, but it takes a conscious decision. And here's the thing, is that it's not comfortable. And we're kind of wired and built to staying in that comfort. And what I really share is that you need to be in the belief zone, because when you believe in yourself and your abilities and your potential, that you can be more than where you are today and what you do today and who you are today, when you believe in more, it gets really hard to be comfortable.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it gets hard to go back to where it was. Lots of times people think they can do the reset button or the rewind button, but that's that. You don't want to keep rewinding all the time.
Mm-mm. And for me, here's what I figured out. So I'm not that special. Let's just say that, okay? Because I went through this. I mean, I went through periods of my life with, when I got out of the military, I was injured. And I just needed to, put my head down and just do my job. I got a corporate job. I did the 9 to 5. I punched the clock. And I did that for almost 2 years before I suddenly, I one day just woke up and went, whoa, where did time go? I just needed to heal emotionally from I was injured. I was a victim of some stalking and abuse while I was in the military. That's a whole other story. But I mentally, physically, emotionally, I needed to heal. And sometimes you just need to do that. And sometimes it's a survival mechanism. We just are going to do the next thing and just plug through and do the next thing. And I did that for a long time. And even when I started doing speaking, I was getting in the way. I knew I needed to do the website. I knew exactly what I needed to do, but there was every reason not to do it. And I was getting in my own way on purpose. And what I figured out, eventually through the help of a coach and hiring a coach, was that I was afraid of the person who had stalked me, and I knew that I would be successful.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I could do this, and I was afraid of that person then finding me. And what I realized is that person finding me by not doing what I knew I was supposed to do, right? I knew I was meant to do this.
Right.
And by not doing what I was meant to do, I was still giving them power over my life and my future. And I realized that every day I was not out here doing radio, in a speech, shooting video, doing whatever it is I needed to do to be successful, to get my message out and to help people. Every single day was a day that someone wasn't getting help that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not helping people and getting them the help that they need and access to something that they need that I can help with, I am hurting them.
And not to mention that your personal power is diminished.
Bigger than that is more about serving others.
Uh-huh.
That's a driver for me, knowing that inside of me. So if I'm hurting people by withholding my message, my story, how dare I?
Well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you wrote this book. I'm grateful that you're showing up. Totally, Elizabeth. So we have just a few more minutes. Let's finish the pilot, the optimize and tenacity, because those are also, if I'm learning to realize my potential, and I am implementing certain ideas, and I'm beginning to lead myself, then I've got to optimize.
So optimize is this one. This chapter was hard.
I bet.
Chapter or section of the book was hard because, especially as women, is that we tend to put others first before ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized with doing that, and actually what happened to me during my injury in the military that caused me to lose my flight career, was that I wasn't taking care of myself first. And in order for us to live a better life, to show up in a better, higher power and in our potential and everything, we have to take care of ourselves first. Because nobody's going to take care of you like you, and no one's going to care enough that you do, and no one else is monitoring the foods that you eat and making sure that you get exercise or enough sleep or the things that you know you need to be you. That's what Optimize is about.
I love that.
Is about showing up as your best self by taking care of yourself. And here is my biggest thing with this, and it's just a soapbox item for me, is as women, those of us, if you're listening to this, think about if you have a daughter, a granddaughter, a niece, a sister, someone, a younger female that you are a role model to, whether they're related to you or not. When we show up and we don't put ourselves first, and we eat last, and we take care of everyone else before we sit down at the dinner table, and we do this, and we do, and we don't go to the gym like the guys do, and we don't take care of ourselves, what are we telling this younger generation of women? That we're not as important as them?
Right, exactly. Well, it's what we were told, right?
Right, but it's how we show up. We can tell them, you're just as smart as the boys, you're just as important as the boys, but then when we don't show up that way, we talk about, unequal pay and unequal, pay disparity and gender equality and everything, but we have to start showing up in our personal power in a way that's not diminished. That, I didn't see it, they just leave. They go to the gym.
Right. It's time for them to go. It's their time.
Yeah. They go. They say, see, it's a priority for them. They walk out and they go. And we go, well, wait, there's dishes, there's laundry, there's the kids. Oh, guess what? They'll be there tomorrow.
That's right.
You take care of yourself, whatever you know you need to show up at your best self. Because if you don't do it, it won't be a husband, a spouse, a mom, a brother. No one can make you do it.
And so in order to then really fulfill your goals and dreams, it seems like this optimizing thing maybe should be one of the first things that people should read in the book is, okay, I'm going to take care of myself first, and then I can build my potential and all that stuff.
Although I really believe that, and the reason other than the alphabet, the O.
Yes.
But the reason I didn't put that kind of thing in belief is that it's hard enough to overcome all of our conditioning and our programming, right? To just believe in ourselves first. You got to kind of feel empowered a little bit to then take it into
that's true.
Into a lack of selfishness, or realizing that it's not. I said that wrong. Realizing it's not selfish to take care of yourself. You're actually serving from a higher place. You're actually, when you take care of yourself and perform at a higher level in everything that you do, it serves everyone, including yourself.
So then let's talk about the last piece, because we only got 2 minutes, Elizabeth. Tenacity. Tenacity, because in that section you talk about fear is an option, and I've heard so often that, especially a military-based kind of ideology, failure. Failure is not an option.
Failure's not an option. Fear is not your friend. Blah,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's very macho and tough. But I believe that, again, much like stress, fear is part of stress, right? In many ways. So fear is a friend. It heightens your awareness. It shows you what's important. If you're afraid of losing something, it's because that's important to to you. If you're afraid of something happening, it's because there's some underlying cause that you need to look at and be prepared for and aware of. So fear can be channeled in such a way. I mean, there were many times in many missions and many different things that I did in the military that I was afraid.
I bet.
But it was a good afraid in that it heightened my awareness, so I was paid more attention.
And then the failure is an option.
Failure is always an option.
Yeah. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, because really that's how we navigate, right? We learn to reassess and then set a new course.
Listen, we learn so much more from mistakes and failures than we ever do from success.
Yeah.
Success creates more complacency more than anything, right? We get comfortable with it. So failure ideally causes you to assess what went wrong, what can I do better, how can I learn from this, and let's try something different.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I've been speaking with Elizabeth McCormick. The book is called The P.I.L.O.T Method. I highly recommend it. And then, Elizabeth, your website is pilotmethod.com. Is there any other website you want to have people explore?
So if you go to, let's do Pilot Speaker, pilotspeaker.com, there's a link to getting some free videos and some free training videos there.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Living Your Inspired Life. And I'm just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.